Okay, so last Friday we worked on this SimpleFrame. Okay, if we go ahead and we run SimpleFrame, we should get something that looks like that. All right, allows us to type in our first name and last name. So let's go Randall Cobb. Big game last night. Okay, we'll say hello. And what that does is it pulls Randall and Cobb out of here, adds it to hello. So hello Randall Cobb. It also cleared out that first name text field. We'll get the last name text field to clear out a little bit later. All right, so right here, we're going to just take some notes here. So just to review what we did, class declaration at the top here. That's what that line is, public class SimpleFrame. Okay, extends JFrame means that every SimpleFrame is a JFrame. Okay, so that's a relationship that we say is a JFrame. Each SimpleFrame object is a JFrame. Extends also means that this class builds off of JFrame. Okay, so it takes everything that JFrame has, inherits it, and then builds off of it. And we did that last semester with My World a whole lot. And so this semester we're going to use JFrame a whole lot as well. All right. And then the last part of that is implements Actionlistener. Okay. And the word implements means basically it can do anything that an Actionlistener should be able to do. So it means this class, it means objects from this class can listen for actions, basically. Okay, so I'm trying to simplify that a little bit, all right? But let me also explain why it's not button listener, okay? So buttons are not the only things that can make actions happen. Okay, so for example, when you guys log into the computer, you guys put in your username and you put in your password and you just hit enter, right? You don't go and click the button. Most people don't, right? So the text field can also create actions. Okay, so we don't want to have one class that's called like button listener, another one that's called text field listener, another one that's called list listener. We want to have one thing that we can say like all of these things create actions, and we're going to listen to actions. Okay, so it's just the reason, that's why it's a little more generalized than a specific thing like button listener. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Okay, at the top of the class then, what we're going to do is we're going to declare and create all of our components that we need for this frame. Okay, so we're going to declare all components needed for the frame at the top of the class. Okay, so that's our first name label, last name label, text field, and button. Okay, if we had other variables that we needed to declare, okay, then we would do that probably separate but still at the top of the class. So we would declare other variables here. In this case, we didn't need any other variables, okay? But we'll see other examples where we will. We're starting out pretty simple here. All right. We should recognize that this is our constructor. Okay. Remember that the constructor has the same name as the class that it's in. Okay. And then it doesn't get anything in front of it like a void or a string or anything else. Okay. And generally what we say the constructor is for setting the initial values of our object. Okay. In this case, because it's a graphical user interface, the constructor's job is to make the frame look the way it's supposed to look. Okay. So we want to say make the frame look right. I don't know how else to say that. All right. Let's just review from last week. What we did is we started out by adding the first name label. We saw that on there. Then we tried to add the first name text field. And remember what that did is it bumped the label out. Okay? And so we said we can only have one component on a frame unless we set the layout of the frame. Okay? So we're setting the layout so we can add more than one component. All right, and the layout also tells us how those components will be added. All right, for right now, we just want to worry about flow layout and nothing else. Okay. Here we're adding components to the frame. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. This is the frame. Okay, so when we use the word this, we're talking about the object that comes from this class. All right, so this is the actual frame that we're going to do something to. Dot means do something to it. What are we doing? We're adding something. Okay, what are we adding? In this case, we're adding the first name label. All right, and then we're going to do that for the text fields and labels and buttons and all that stuff. All right. Same kind of idea down here, but different thing that we're acting on here. So this time we're acting on the hello button. And what are we doing? We're adding an action listener to it. So we're saying when you get pressed, here's the object that's listening to you. And the object that's listening to you is this frame. Okay? So let me just reword this a little bit. Making this frame listen to the button. Okay? And you can imagine that you could have more than one button on a frame. So I'm going to put an S in parentheses here. So we would do that for each button that we want to have some action. So like when you guys have your first assignment today, okay, you're going to have more than one button that you're going to have to register whether it got clicked or not. Okay? So this .pack, we talked about this a little bit. We're just going to say that pack magically sets the size of the frame. Okay? Now it's not really magic, so what pack does is it goes and asks all the components that have been added, the labels and text fields and buttons, asks them how big they need to be, okay? And they can tell how big they need to be because of how we constructed them. So like the hello button says say hello on it, it knows how big it needs to be to have say hello on it, okay? So it asks each of them how big it needs to be, and then it figures out how big the frame needs to be to fit all of those components. All right, set visible true. For whatever reason, frames by default are not visible. Okay, this line of code you guys don't really need, but I need it on mine, so don't worry about that, I guess. Okay, going down to the action perform method now. This method is required for, let's say, components, because a frame is really a component that will react to button clicks. Okay? Now, let me just take like a few seconds, and I want you guys to look up at what I'm doing, okay? A common error that people make is they just misspell this, or they just type it in wrong, okay? So what'll happen is you'll do action preformed. I see that all the time. And when you get action preformed, you see that that causes an error way up here, okay? So SimpleFrame now, it's not holding up the bargain that it's making here to say implements action listener. It's saying, and what this error message is saying is, if you're going to say you implement Action Listener, you have to have a method called Action Performed. Okay, so just screwing up that little bit is going to make your class, make your objects not work the way they want to work. Okay, so it's got to be performed. All right. Another thing that I see people do a lot is capital A action performed. That's the same thing. Okay, it's got to be lowercase a action, capital P performed. All right, and then inside of there, let me just say one last thing about this. It doesn't matter what you call this. Okay, so if you want to call this banana for whatever reason, or you want to, make up your own word here, okay, it doesn't matter what you call that. I usually will call it either E or event. Okay, yeah.
That's the same for the not event?
Yep. Yep. Okay, so then inside of here, what we want to do is we want to check which button got pressed. Okay. Or other component. Okay, so I guess it's not going to be just a button because it could be a text field like we said. So check which component got activated. Okay, I'll just say pressed for now. Okay, in this case we're checking if the hello button got pressed. Any questions on that? So we're saying event.getSource equals hello B. And then inside of here, we're just doing all the code that we want to pull the names off of the text fields, okay? So this is getting a copy of whatever text is in this text field and then storing that in the variable called first, doing that for last, adding those to the hello string, okay? So this is all code for the hello button. All right. Here we're clearing out the text field for first name TF. Let's go ahead and clear out the last name TF as well. So last name TF.setText, an empty string, and then making that message dialog. Do you guys feel like we need more detail on how this works, or do you feel like you got that? Okay, so then you guys are going to have an assignment to do, okay? And your assignment is on the Action Listener page. And your assignment is to make your own frame. And I'm sorry that I can make a better picture if you need it. So this picture is pretty small, but it looks very similar to what we've already done. Okay, this is a college name, so I put in Wisconsin there. College mascot is Badgers. When I click cheer, this comes up, so it says Go Wisconsin Badgers. Okay, this is a clear button. When I click the clear button, I want the text fields to clear out. Okay, so that's what you're going to be working on today, and if you need some time tomorrow, we can do it tomorrow as well.